Hey guys, welcome to our book club chat, and today we are going to be discussing the Darian Williams book, Blood at the Root. There, if you haven't read the book, feel free to save this video and come back to it and join in the discussion. And if you are reading along with us, make sure you drop your comments below. That way I know what you think about the book, how you're feeling about it, so on and so forth. So let's get started. All right, so if you've checked out my previous two videos, you know that I have talked about Malik's loss of innocence along with the found family versus biological family discussion. But today I want to just go over some of the other things that I've looked at or have been, taking mental notes of in the book. And first thing I want to talk about is, how do you guys feel about the multiple pop culture references? Now, I do know that that was one of the main criticisms of people in the book, and I kind of feel that it does rely a little heavy on the pop culture references. There's the Parkers, J. Cole, God, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Like, there's a whole lot. And case in point, the Beyonce reference doesn't actually even come in until chapter 10. But I kind of feel like every other statement or sentence there is a pop culture reference, and I'm really having a hard time getting used to that. I feel without the pop culture references, the book would be amazing, but I'm just kind of, I don't really care for them because I don't feel it adds any value to the story, and or even the phrasing, the situation or the scene that I'm reading at that moment. So what do you guys think about that? Are you okay with the pop culture references, or are you kind of like me where, that part could be left out? And I really hope for book 2 that he opts not to do so many pop culture references. It's okay that it's done, but what movie was it? It was Spider-Man. I'm sorry, not Spider-Man. It was Avengers, the first one. Was it not Endgame? Endgame was the second one. The first Avengers, the one right before Endgame. I cannot think of what movie it was, but when Spider-Man was doing all of the pop culture references, and Iron Man's like, if you do one more, and I'm definitely at that part right now, like, please, no more pop culture references if we can help it, because God, that is a whole lot. Now, what I do like about this book is that the magical system isn't really even explained until he gets to Kamen University. And it's about chapters, I think the end of chapter 7 going to chapter 8 and 9, when you really start to understand how it is, how it's done. And even still, there's not too much that's explained. So all we have for right now in the first 7 chapters is the fact that Malik does seem to have some type of power. It seems that he's, capable of causing balls of light to shoot out of his hand. Maybe a strong wind coming up. Definitely some type of fire or explosion abilities. And even the stuff that happens with Carlisle when he gets really, really angry, that he's able to, I think it was levitate things out the air, cause like sudden electrical bursts, but it's not really explained what his exact powers are. And that's the part that leaves me torn. Like, are these magical powers or are they superpowers? And I know you're thinking, what, Nicole? But yeah, I'm very curious, just, are they magical powers or are they superpowers? When he flung the person in the gas station back, I think he just, waved his hand and the person, the flinging back, because Tay was, the guy wouldn't give him gas and things like that, and Tay was really sick. That again is where I was kind of feeling like, what type of powers is it that we, or magical abilities here that are we experiencing? And hopefully as the book goes along, they will start to explain a lot of that stuff. Now, clearly this leads me to the introduction of the Baron. So Baron Samedi, if you know, is a part of the Loa, if I'm not mistaken, in Haitian voodoo religion. And then they also mention that he also mentions Mama Brigitte in the story as well, another member of the voodoo religion. And so Malik being related to them would lead you to, they're his an uncle. It would sort of lead you to believe that he is some type of deity or somewhere along those lines, but they don't even really explain who his mother is in that case. You know, we get very vague details about his mom. Only the fact that she attempted to try some baneful magic and she got into trouble for it, possibly got into trouble for it. So that's where I'm hoping as we read that the mixture of the African Yoruba religion and the Haitian voodoo religion, that they don't start to become intertwined and muddied throughout the story. That is my one big worry. And if you follow my main page, I talk a lot about folklore, hoodoo. And I rarely ever touch on voodoo because or any of that stuff, or the Orisha, because I really want to give respect to the people who practice those religions. So I normally try to stay out of that. And I know one of the biggest complaints with Children of Blood and Bone is that Orisha was the name of the country or the city, which a lot of people saw as very disrespectful. So I'm hoping as we read this that, the line between the Loa and Orisha are not muddied. Now, I can say that at Cayman University, they have a lot of different sections where magic is practiced. And one of mine, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but another complaint of mine with that is that the hoodoo kids who were doing hoodoo and taking it as a study track, they were also doing that as well. And again, I'm hoping that I'm interpreting that part wrong, but I did feel that that was a little disrespectful to the path of hoodoo, and I hope that it is explained a lot more later on in the book as we read. Now, when it comes to Malik's magical powers, I think a lot of it in the beginning being driven by anger and emotion is something that we see a lot. You experience something traumatic, your magic activates. It's kind of the same trope that we see a lot over and over again. And this just takes me back to my first point of, it would be interesting to, it taking so long to get to the part that, there's other magical people out there. I think, again, it would be another criticism that I have, is that it took so many chapters to, I guess, get to the point, get to Cayman U, start meeting other magical kids. So that's why I say with some of the pop culture references and some of the others, actions that took, in the book, a lot of that stuff possibly could have been cut out, like him stealing the car, the interaction at the gas station. A lot of that could have been shortened just a little bit so that we could get to Cayman U. Like, I do understand that we had to set it up to see everything that Malik could do. I understand, I understand that part, but I really feel as if we could have shortened those scenes or just done a quick summary of them. They didn't need to be as detailed as they were. Even the anger that he had with his family, some of the scenes when he first meets the grandmother and things like that, I feel like the same stuff was being repeated over and over and over again. And so I wish the author would have, done another round and saw that it did become repetitive, and so we could have taken that out instead of us having to constantly read how he felt. He protect Hay, like, we get that. You're overprotective. We completely understand. It's no need to go back into that again. So that's just another kind of criticism that I have as far as how that part is written. Now, going forward, something that I would like readers to keep in mind, just look at these things in kind of like a comparative literature point of view. Ancestry and magic. think between Blood at the Root, Legendborn, Children of Blood and Bone, we see that the magic itself is tied to cultural heritage. Much like the path of hoodoo, you have to be a descendant of an enslaved U.S. American in order to practice hoodoo. That's why it's a closed practice. Voodoo requires initiation. Dealing with the Orishas requires initiation. So these all come from a path of cultural heritage, and it's directly tied to your ancestors. If your ancestors tell you that, give you the okay to practice it, then you can practice it. But if you are not given the okay, it's always best to not do that. So I do like how these stories all tie in the cultural heritage of magic. And so that's something that I'd like you to keep in mind as you read this book. Now, I don't so much want to focus on oppression, institutional racism, and things like that, but I know that it probably can come up, but something that I find interesting, again, this is jumping ahead, but it's something that you need to look for, is that when it comes to the missing non-magical Black people, the Black magical community does not care. They only care when it's other magical members of their community who go missing. So I think we need to think about this in terms of the real world aspect. A lot of times when Black folks go missing, people don't care anyway, but then you come into that kind of classist issue within the Black community. And so in this case, it's being played out in the magical community versus non-magical community. So let me know what you kind of think about that. You know, the perception of how that, you know, is in fantasy world versus reality. And also some things for you to think about. How do you think Bree's time and Legendborn at UNC compares to that of Malik's at a magical HBCU? So what do you think some of the differences are compared to that and how they're behaving? And if you could put Bree, Malik, and Zeeley in the story together, how do you think the three of them would interact with each other? And then finally, what role does their heritage play in them being able to understand their magic? Malik knows nothing about his heritage, so he has absolutely no understanding of what he can do. Neither did Bree. They both have to kind of go out and search for a community of their own. It was a lot easier for Malik because he is at least descended from these people who are alive and sends him to a place where he can, but Bree is unable to do that because of the curse placed upon her family. So there's only going to be one of her around in order to do that. So she has to rely on complete and total strangers to tell her about herself. And then Zeeley, you know, clearly she's already embroiled in that world as well, and it's known. They just don't acknowledge it that much anymore. So that's the discussion for now. As we get more into the meat and the depth of the book, I do expect this video to be significantly longer, but since we were just right at the beginning, like I said, they didn't really even get into the magic aspect of it yet. It's not much that we can talk about, but please check out my other videos on Blood at the Root, and then go ahead and follow. That way you can keep up with the discussion as well as following my TikTok and my Substack. Bye.